then it gets louder, 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 then you start to believe it, and then the next thing you do is you act in a way that's inconsistent with what your ultimate desire is. So now again, start researching when stuff is going wrong for you and researching the pattern. What happened first? What happened next? What did I stop doing? What could I have done earlier? And another one is, what am I going to do differently next time? And it's about writing this stuff down. There's a lot of power when you write this down in your journal. A lot more power in writing it down in your journal than going through this process in your mind. Now, me being fair, me being me, knowing that if 1,000 people see this, there's going to be somebody that's not going to want to write it down. Okay. You'll get more benefit out of doing this, writing it down, but you'll get more benefit out of going through than not going through. So even if you don't write it down, if you take the time to look at the steps that happen, you'll still get benefit, but you'll get like 100-fold more benefit if you take the time to write it down. So let's talk about regulation, because this is a skill that you need. Now, again, I would encourage you to, as part of your growth process, to really learn emotional mastery. And that's not something that you're going to learn in this little hour and a half or whatever time that it takes me to tape this. You're not going to do it that way. That's a pursuit. That's 100-hour, 20 to 100-hour pursuit for you actually going into learning how to deal with your emotions better, how to regulate yourself, and so on and so forth. That's a 100-hour pursuit. It's not something that you're going to do this. No, it's something that you'll do deliberately, and it's one of the greatest skills that you can have. You'll get along with people better, and most importantly, anybody that's an addict has an emotional management issue, and they need to learn how to manage their emotions better without using something to compensate for their lack of emotional management, and or something to make them feel better because they can't handle the present moment. It's funny, that theme over and over and over again. Paying attention. Not, oh, I'm going to count how many days. It's a deliberate process that has nothing to do with counting a day or getting through a day. This is deliberate paying attention to yourself. And all this stuff here, it's more than just, okay, I paid attention. What is a strategy that can make it better? And you can, you don't have to have the best strategy in the world. A terrible strategy that works is better than no strategy at all. And then once you have a terrible strategy that works that's better than no strategy at all, then you can get a better strategy than that, and a better strategy than that, and a better strategy than that. Again, constant, never-ending improvement. Now, again, in the emotional process, start learning to actually identify the emotion by word, because it's in identifying that you can begin to have a positive action and solution for it. And I'll only talk about one here. I'm not going to go on all these. But like, if I was feeling powerless, you have something that you know that you're good at and that you have authority on. So I would take control over something that I have some type of control on immediately, that would make me feel that I'm powerful. Because you are powerful. This powerless stuff, that's a lie. That's a big fat lie. So I dealt with one as an example. Lower the intensity. Because like when you're in it, oh, you're in it. So again, because of the fact that you know that emotions is a big deal for you, and that you are no longer going to be somebody that's random in how your emotions are. You are actually going to, you're going to step into the role of being the chief executive officer of your emotions. You're going to be the quarterback of your emotions, and you're going to be the general of your emotions. If you choose to do that, then one of the things that you'll learn how to do is to balance yourself out. And as I talked before, the easiest way to balance yourself out is to move yourself from where you are, change your focus, and change the way that you're talking to yourself. It's a magnificent thing. One technique I also gave you a little back, is to go into gratitude. I'm so thankful for blah, 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 blah. I'm so thankful that I'm breathing, that I'm healthy, that I can look out the window and see horses and everything else that I can do right now. You cannot be in a state of gratitude and at the same time have a negative emotion. So you need to have fast de-escalators that you already have in place. Water, movement, breathing, less privacy. Maybe you have a specific song. I have an album that's called Recovery Rock and Roll Music. Feel free to ask me about it. It's a whole song that's basically this chorus in music. It's not that sophisticated, but it has a lot of the talking to yourself part. So again, it comes right back down to what's the next wise action. And in that album, by the way, there's a song called One More Right Choice. And it really speaks to that, because that's really what you're doing. What is the next right thing? 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 And then start doing it. Is it text a mentor? And again, I say phone them. Phone them. Phone them. Phone them. Make contact. Go where people are. Start one task. Tell the truth to somebody. A wise action will create a calmer state. And again, this is the regulation framework. What's happening right now? What exactly is happening? So not the vague answer. What exactly is happening? How can I lower the temperature? What's the next right action? Take that right action. And then you get regulated again. Notice what's going on. Tension. What kind of tension? Name it. Stress. Stress from this dude. He may be doing X. Lower it. Take some deep breaths. Choose. What's the wise action? Maybe call the person up and figure out how you can work that situation out that's causing you pressure. And that's actually in the connection. By doing that, you took the action, you resolved the situation, boom. Go through those steps. Regulation framework. Why does the body matter? Well, this is a physiological addiction, as you know. It has physiological parts to it. So learning to relax is an incredible life skill that comes with this process, because of the fact that stress and boredom are your biggest enemies once you get some supremacy. Everything's your enemy if you don't have any tools, but once you get some tools and start working on this, stress and boredom will become your biggest enemy. So these are healthy replacement actions. praying honestly instead of performing. I like that. Yeah. And that would be a nice way to learn how to pray, period. That this performing and has no business next to prayer at all, ever. Sometimes doing voice notes are good too, by the way. If you want to do it like a voice journal, figure out how to do that. Because then that way you can hear yourself, and you can also hear yourself growing. Again, immediate walk, stretch, exercise, change your physiology, which is a good way to rebound yourself and get some form of regulation. Now, this one was kind of like an eye-opener to me when my assistant came up with that line there. And the reason being is because I know how people, when they're in their addiction, think. And so a lot of times for them to try a new technique or something that I'm talking about, and this actually goes beyond just a replacement action. Sometimes people always want something to be, oh, it's got to be so magical. They're looking for this magical thing. It doesn't have to be magical, because the only thing that we're looking for is we're looking to break the momentum of destruction. So there's nothing that has to be magical at all. The only thing we're looking to do is to break the momentum. So we're not looking to do something and all of a sudden, oh, it's me doing this, oh, it's better. Oh, it doesn't have to be like that. As long as it breaks your pattern and breaks the momentum of destruction, whatever tool or replacement action you put in place is a good thing. The fact that it's not like you replace one thing for something phenomenal, like I replaced drinking water for drinking the best lemonade on the planet. It doesn't have to be the best lemonade on the planet as long as it's decent water. It's about breaking the pattern. So don't always look for whatever tool you have to be some magical thing. Just look for something that works. Now, different emotions, and this is why we talked about naming the emotion, because the old way was you have an emotion, you get uncomfortable, you self-soothe. The new way is you have an emotion, there's a specific tool for every specific emotion, and you have several specific tools, and you have an emotion, and you use the tool that's most convenient for you, or the tool that you choose to use, or the tool that you've proven to yourself is most effective for that situation. But again, every emotion has a different answer to transform it healthy. But the reason why that's kind of difficult sometimes for a person coming from addiction is that they only had one tool for everything. So here we go. The emotion of stress comes from Tony Robbins 101. Stress is when you make something more important than it really is in most conditions, most situations, not all. But most situations you will really find that stress is that you made something, even though it's important, you made it more important than it is. And that's why it's stressful. It doesn't mean that it isn't important. It means you made it more important than it is. So since you made it more important, if you make it a little less important, you might find that the stress goes down as well. Just saying. So stress tools, prioritize. Do one thing first. See, a lot of times the stress is felt because you feel overwhelmed. The stress is felt because there's confusion. You don't know what the next right move is. And so you want to try to get rid of everything all at once. And also, you have to remember that there is an addict mentality. And the addict mentality is more than the impulsive person. I know you understand impulsivity. But this is like impulsivity 10x. So the addicted person just goes for it. Just goes for it right there as fast as he can, seeking relief, seeking to end a stressful situation, seeking relief. And so you have to learn how to just do one thing, how to reduce the overload. And one of the parts of this journey that's true for most of us, no matter where we are, especially in the culture that we live in, goes back to slide on session 1. Our lives are decided by what we say yes to and what we say no to, or what we don't say no to and what we don't say yes to. So a lot of the stress that we have sometimes is from overload. So what we can do while we're experiencing this stress is try to find the source of the stress and how can we minimize it in the future, as well as while we're dealing with it right now. So again, shrink it into a problem that you can take actions on, because it doesn't reduce itself with one action. It's actions. Loneliness, again, I've said loneliness comes with boredom too sometimes. So they come combined. So the easiest way is to reach out, and it's not text, it's call or sit near people or go and start a real conversation. Have a rack of safe friendships. I told you about boredom and stress. Told you about it over and over again. Yeah, have a plan for this stuff. It's dangerous. You need to have a plan. Plan. Everything on that halts list, you need to have a plan. Everything that's a hot area, you need to have a plan. Everything that's a trigger, you need to have a plan. And what I say is, for every plan, you need to have multiple plans, because that's the way a general would operate. That's the way a CEO would operate. You got multiple plans. I'm not just going to have one repair plan. So again, anger, I've said it, it's going to be a big deal for you. And you need to learn how to turn it down, because people act out a lot in their anger. Oh, I get angry. Oh, forget it. Oh, yeah. So this is stuff that you really need to burn into your head. That you don't scroll when you're hot. You don't act when you're hot. You don't make decisions when you're hot. And you don't isolate when you're hot. It takes some time before you start doing those. But I'm encouraging you to learn how to do it, because this is self-mastery. And it's these things that will allow you to recover. Because what happens if we isolate when we're heated? We might escape. What happens when we decide when we're heated? We make bad decisions. And bad decisions equal what? More being heated, more being stressed. What happens when we scroll when we're heated? We don't make good decisions. What happens when we act out when we're heated? Not good decisions. Period. We talked about shame. One bad moment does not need to lead to a second bad moment. And this is what you have to get in the habit of learning. Let the bad moment be your stop sign. Often people let the bad moment be their green light. Oh, I've already messed up. I might as well go all in. No, you already messed up. Stop. And then figure out how you messed up and do something to change it for next time. And as I said, anytime something shows up in your life that you don't like, instead of I'm a failure, what happened? How am I really feeling? What it is, who should know now? And what is the repair step? Start asking yourself some questions rather than to just, oh, I feel bad, and then figure out a way not to feel bad. Start asking questions. This is a deliberate walk. The days of randomness are over. I mean, that pretty much speaks for itself. Don't turn pain into permission. As a matter of fact, don't give yourself permission anyway. A rough day, don't give up. A rough day means you need to give in more. The moment needs perspective, not your self-destruction. A bad moment, don't give it permission for you to go down the wrong street, for you to go down into the hole. Don't give permission. Notice that you give permission to toxicity in your life and stop giving it permission. It needs your help. A lot of stuff that's going on that you don't like needs your help. I'm encouraging you to find out what those things are and don't give it no more help. The way you do that is by feeling things honestly, not over dramatizing things, and stay in this structure. And you need to learn how to reset fast. Once you notice that you're going down the wrong track, correct. And it's really serious. You know, I think about driving a lot of times. Probably because I drove a lot. And because we all drive, and it's good metaphors. But I mean, if you were riding down the wrong road, and it would be the wrong road because you were riding down it. But if you were riding down a road and you found yourself riding off of the road, I actually live in the country, so I got some pretty dangerous roads metaphors to think about. But anyway, if you were riding off of the road, would you just keep riding off of the road? I mean, you wouldn't do that. What you would do is you would correct the car. If ever you're riding off of the road, you correct the car. And you need to start driving your life the same way you would drive that car. When the wheels start to get off of that road, you correct, versus saying, oh, I'm already off the road. Let me just go ahead and ride off this cliff. See, that's a little ridiculous. So don't do that in your real life, in your regular life now. So again, when it comes to anxiety, what I want you to know is anxiety is when you're focusing too much on a future that's not here yet. And you're also focusing on what is going to happen in that future. And so if you're doing all of that, you don't have any mental bandwidth to focus on what you can do to make that moment the best that it possibly can, which also sets you up for that next moment to not go as well as planned. So I really believe in this. Do your best not to have anxiety, because anxiety is a dressed up way of having fear. And what we know from real life is that about 99% of the fears that you have in life, they're not really going to happen anyway. But then the 1% that happens, half of that if not 3/4 of that. The only reason why it happens is because you were focusing on the fear versus what you could do. You didn't put the same, you're focusing on losing all the water. You didn't put the plug in the drain. So again, if you're stressed, break it down into pieces that you can fix. If you're lonely, move to people. If you're bored, you need to have goals. You need to have a structure from the beginning of the day until the day's done. If you're angry, cool down. Get water. Cool your body. If you're ashamed, tell the truth. It's a relief. And if you're anxious, narrow the shame. Narrow the frame, rather, so that you can bring it into one little piece. And then really serious, if you're anxious, ask yourself the question, what am I afraid of? And then do what you can do to prevent the thing that you're afraid of from happening. We said this over and over again. Each emotion has a different answer in real life. In addiction life, each emotion has one answer. So when you really live a recovered lifestyle, then you become proactive, which means you cut stuff off before it happens. You use boundaries. You use all the tools that we talked about, and tools that you're going to gain, and tools that you create for yourself to get stronger, and your everyday life becomes managed better. And so here's some things to think about when it comes to prevention, because this is it's a, for lack of a better term, it's a game of prevention. It's a game of proactivity, because that's so much easier. And I don't like to use the word easier, but it's so much simpler than the fight. Cut it off. Put up the boundaries. If I put up some boundaries, if I put up 10 good boundaries, that's like 50,000 good decisions I don't even have to think about ever again. Ever again. And that's some stuff that never will possibly, it can't happen because I put up 10 good boundaries. Boundaries cut off stuff. It cannot happen. Cannot happen. You know, it's like, if I don't leave my keys in my car, nobody will ever steal my car because the keys were left in. They will have to come up with a more sophisticated way of stealing the car than just find the keys and starting it. So boundaries cut it off. Sleep's not a small detail. Sleep patterns, we already know. We already know. I don't know who's putting out the memos that you don't need sleep. I'm putting out a memo, you do need sleep. Because lack of sleep, it's at the core of a lot of stuff. So rather than me doing all that, you do that on your own. You can't fight when you're tired. And this is a fight. So that's why you can't be tired. Life in and of itself is a pretty big fight anyway, so you can't be tired. Because life doesn't give you a chance to take days off. I mean, I know you're under this understanding of somehow that you have days off. Yeah, you have days off of this or that. But in life, you don't get to take no days off. You'll figure that out one day, but you don't. Structure. Structure is it's planned boundaries. And structure is that road. Structure is a road for a project or a day. And you need to have greater structure, which brings me up to another point. This is something just to put in your little toolkit here. Whatever it's worth. We know that for some reason, people that take in the pornography addiction, they come from two different family types, and they're basically polar opposites. And so one family type is that there's a lot of structure in the house, tremendous amount. And then the other is actually on the entire opposite, where there isn't too much structure. And I invite you to tell me different. You can feel free to send me a checklist on that, because my data tells me that people are either the people that are in addiction either come from highly structured environments or very low structured environments. So that's part of the it's not your fault kind of thing, how it fell on you, shall we say. However, and when I look back at my own environment and I ask myself that question for me, it's a funny thing that happens. And the funny thing that happened is, yeah, I came from a high structured environment. However, in my teens, my environment had no structure. I was just kind of a free range kid. I didn't have any structure. I didn't get in trouble like on the outside, but I'm just telling you a fact. It's either no structure or a lot of structure, or in my case, high structure, and then we went to no structure. We talked about movement. And I don't mean to bug you, but some of this stuff you got to hear over and over again. No device in the bed. Why? Because you have it in it. You have this stuff. You need to hear some of this stuff over and over again. And I apologize, but I don't apologize. But I apologize with my mouth. I don't apologize with my heart for you having to hear it. But you have to hear it because you looked at the same porn over and over again, over and over again, over and over again, over and over again. Had no problem looking at that over and over again, over and over again, over and over again. And the thing is that because you did that, you conditioned your mind a certain way. The only way that you're going to condition your mind out of where it is by hearing certain things over and over and over again. So that's why you are. It's a big deal. Support is protective. It's not optional. It's part of the plan. You need to have a coach or a pastor or parents that support you, mentors, safe peers that support you in this endeavor. You cannot do this alone. You did it to yourself alone. You're not going to undo it alone. It's done through community. Now, here's some things to look at. You have proactive, and then you have reactive. Here we go again with another life skill. See, animals react. Okay? Animals react. So anytime you react, I react. That's what a dog does. What a mature human being does is mature human beings respond. That means they thoughtfully execute what's needed deliberately and intentionally. That's responding. Okay? And then to take responding to the next level is, again, reaction and responding. That's after the fact. But true responding is the things that I just said, not acting like an animal. But true responding is actually proactivity too, which means that you do the work about what you're going to do before it even happens. And that'll be your friend. And this reactiveness is your enemy. And hopefully from this day forward, you learn to be somebody who responds to situations, because that's actually taking an action that's a mature action, taking an action that's your next right move. See, reaction, that's a knee jerk. Oh, let me do. Responding, again, that's what that quarterback, that's what that general would do. And the way that you learn and get that kind of supremacy over yourself is by deliberately building that muscle of proactivity. And that starts with continuously checking and monitoring your behavior, daily check-ins. See, this allows you to proactively come up with a response to what was stressing you out. This allows you to see what your temperature is. Temperature. This is proactivity. See, and that's the kind of questions that you got to ask yourself. You got to ask yourself questions about, where am I right now? And what do I need to do next? And that's totally different from the addictive process of randomness and all that goofy. Fortunately, all of these next couple of slides, we kind of dealt with that last session, so I'm going to just let it go. Your phone can't be your companion, my friend. Your phone ain't supposed to be your companion. If there's anything about your phone that's companion-like, that relationship dramatically needs to change. And right now would be a good time for it to change. So there you are. Pull yourself out of the drift and refuse to automatically escape. Lower the temperature, drink some water, wash your hands, wash your feet, take a walk. Be specific about what happened in adverse situations and don't make it worse than it is. If you can, tell a safe person. And what kind of act can you take that's a positive action in the situation? And that'll get you back. So what's the story that you tell yourself? What is the story that you tell yourself whenever things don't go your way? Whenever things don't work the way you want it to work? What is the story you tell yourself? Is it a lie? And how much cognitive distortion is in whatever it is that you tell yourself? You should look to the right. This is definitely good language. Repair's possible. Support's available. But like permission to do the wrong thing that you've been giving yourself, entitlement and all that stuff that gives you permission, you feel bad, you deserve, you had a stressful day, that permission's false. So anytime you want to give yourself permission to do something, it's always going to be a lie. And you also need to know anytime you did something that wasn't what you wanted, you told yourself a lie to allow yourself to do it. This is how the brain works. This is how you and I do things. And the only way that you're going to see that last statement that I made, if it's true, is just pay attention. You're never going to do anything that you're not supposed to do without telling a lie to yourself. Never. So the next time you do anything, and after you look at it, you say, I ain't really want to do that. Next time you have that situation, the next question is, what is the lie? What was a lie that I told myself to make that okay? And again, we talked about it last session, something happened before the slip. Some kind of feelings were happening. You set something up. Stuff happened before. What were they? Identify them and change them next time with proactivity. Remember what I told you last time about game 3. Your worst day can actually be your best day, because your worst day is the day that you learn what you need to make every day great. I mean, that speaks for itself. The story you tell yourself after a hard moment is often more dangerous than what happened. So you really need to learn how to talk to yourself better. And so you need to learn how to recover the same day, not like 10 days down the road, the same day. When you get off track, repair yourself the same day. Not all this all or nothing. Let's go and wreck stuff for a while, and then we'll wake up when we've endured so much shame that we can't take it anymore. The same day. One of the first things to do is take a healthy action immediately and change the pattern. No, we have no time for self-pity. We have no time for engaging in any kind of conversation that's not supportive of us. That's why, again, we'll get into the language down the road. We say this stuff like, nobody gets us. I deserve something. See, entitlement. I deserve better. Nothing matters anyway. A bunch of lies. Okay, so here's some 5 same-day repair moves. Because that's important. I think that's a big skill for some people out there. They need to learn how to get themselves back that day. Because, as I said, the day that you're calling bad could be the very day that you got what it is to totally transform your life. You got it. But the shame clouds it, and the shame will have you to forget it too. And then you'll have to get it again. But really, your worst day can be your best day if you see why it's your worst day and change it so it never happens again. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Tell the truth quickly, correct yourself quickly, and refuse to tell yourself all those lies. Might as well. I've already messed this up. And all that other stuff. Okay? Get yourself back on track. Forgive yourself. Be graceful to yourself. I've talked about it over and over again. Love yourself. And here's what a setback really is, and that thing that they're calling failure. It's training. It's revealing what you're missing. It's revealing what needs to be strengthened. It's revealing what you need to know. And then make a decision on that information that you get about what specifics that you're not going to do. See, what you see in those forums, what you see in the uneducated way of recovering, is that something happens and all the person does is beat themselves up about it. And then they seek relief. And that's it. And then they do the same thing. Every time something doesn't go right, you got to ask yourself, what's going to change? If you remember what I told you about guilt, I don't do guilt. I mean, I do guilt for a second. I made a mistake. That was wrong. I hurt somebody's feelings. That was bad. Whatever it was, I acknowledge it. Now, what can I do? What can I do to fix it? And what can I do so that it never happens again? What can I do to fix it? What can I do so that it never happens again? I ain't got no time to sit there and be guilty about it, because as long as I'm guilty about it, I didn't ask that question. And since I didn't ask that question, it's gotta happen again, because I don't have any. I didn't take the time to figure out how to put up a boundary so it doesn't happen again. So that speaks for itself. You got to have a personal plan for everything. You got to know what time. You got to know yourself. You have to become an expert on yourself. What times of the day am I most vulnerable? And then you have a plan for it. Some people, they're most vulnerable in the evening, by having, that's the time that you do your religious devotional. Sometimes that cuts that out for people. Paying attention to the emotions that were going on before an act out. Do you know what your most vulnerable emotion is? Do you have a list? Do you know what that is? Can you tell me right now what that is? And that's good news that you can tell me what it is. But even better than that, can you tell yourself 5 things that you can do to effectively deal with that situation next time? I'm not looking for one. I might forget one. Have 5. You want to have a toolbox. You know, the same way you have a toolbox of endless supplies to supply your addiction. Endless. Why not have an endless supply of tools? Coming back to original stuff. Addiction recovery in its basic form is doing the opposite of what I did to get addicted and what I do in addiction. Again, addiction recovery is doing the opposite of what I did to become addicted and what I do in addiction. That's the easy part. That it is a reversal and that it is the opposite. The hard part is to actually do the research, the discovery, to go through this process that we're going through, that's causing you to think about things differently than you did before. What are your dangerous thoughts? And again, dangerous thoughts become dangerous things that you say to yourself, because thoughts become things. And I think people don't, you can't stop a thought that comes to your mind. You just can't. Can't stop a thought. Any thought could come into your mind. You can't stop a thought. You're not good, you're not bad because of a thought that came in your mind. What you can do is you have total control over what your dominant thoughts are, what you're thinking about all the time. You have control about those. And so your life's going to be determined by the quality of your thoughts. And so while a person is addicted, a lot of their thoughts is about acting out and being engaged in the addiction. Might be a clue. A good way to get recovery real fast is to just think about recovery. Recovery, not day. There's a big difference between recovery and day. See? Because if you're thinking about recovery, you're constantly thinking about how can you navigate the journey of life today better than yesterday, and what's the next right move. So there you are. Some tools. You don't enter the week with only one strategy. You have to have a toolbox of strategies. Why? Because there's a toolbox of strategies working against you. It's more than a toolbox. I think it's a warehouse. We talked about checking in. We talked about developing safe people around you. We talked about creating an environment that supports you. All that privacy, it doesn't support you. You have to have night night rules, standards of how you end your day. You need to know what your dangerous times are. What are your warning signs? What are your dangerous thoughts? What are the dangerous stuff that comes out of your mouth that just stop? What are your regulation tools? Who are your supportive people? What are your environmental rules? And what are some of your same day repair steps? Now, this is stuff for you to write in your journal. That right there, those are essays right there. You could do a page, each one of those. And that's the kind of stuff that you put in your first aid kit right there. You already know in your head what your dangerous times are, but you get a lot more progress in your recovery when you write it down. There's just something about that. But again, those are the things that go into your recovery plan written down. It's a good wisdom thought, if you will. Wisdom's not only resisting when the fire starts, but wisdom's removing the dry fuel before the spark. Proactivity. Get rid of the fuel. Get rid of stuff. Boundaries. If I close this door, I don't have to worry about those 14 doors there that I don't want to go into. Sleep, sleep, sleep. What can you upgrade? Because it's a constant and never-ending improvement. So it's a constant and never-ending improvement. That's what life's about, and that's what this is about. Constant and never improvement. Does that mean you're going to work harder and harder and harder and harder and harder and harder and harder every day and every day and every day? Yeah. But does it mean that you're going to put out more energy to do that work every day? No, it don't. You're going to do more work because you're going to be more effective in your work. So yeah, more work's going to get done. But it doesn't mean that you're putting out more energy. You're putting out less energy. When you run this play effectively, it takes less energy to do it right than it does to do it goofy. So again, recovery, this is an emotional dance, man, because you used to numb yourself. And some of the triggers are emotional. Some of them are environmental. Some of them are physical. Some of them are relational. You have to learn how they are and then identify them. And some of them are actually spiritual drifts. All crashes, not most, but all crashes have a buildup that you can figure it out after the fact. Eventually, you're going to figure it out before the fact. But the only way you'll get to being able to figure it out before the fact is by taking the time and learning how to figure out what happened after the fact. And regulation's a trainable skill. As we said, notice what's going on, name it, lower, choose. And then go out and find some tools that are out there on YouTube and every other place to teach you how to regulate. You got specialists at this stuff. You need to learn how to regulate. And I can only teach you so much. This is something that you need to master in your life. Emotional mastery. It's a lot better than counting days. Better life management usually means better urge management. Isn't that funny? Yeah, really funny. And this was what strength looks like, my friend. It looks like repetition. It looks like honesty. It looks like structure. It looks like support. Freedom looks like something that you do because you practice it regularly and it repairs you and it consistently. Something that you do and you have wise limits. It comes down to every day, what is your next right move? Notice the pressure. Name the feeling. Lower the intensity. Choose the next right thing. And tell the truth early. And remember, just because you mess something up doesn't mean you got to mess it all up. You're not locked into your current habits. You're not. Recovery is more than resisting behavior. It's about learning how to handle stress, pressure, loneliness, boredom, shame. If life becomes steadier, recovery becomes stronger. So yeah, you have to balance your life out, and then the recovery becomes stronger. And counting days and hanging in a corner, that's not what happens. And as you go through this process, the things I want you to know is that recovery is going to expose motions. It does. And since you're not numbing yourself, reality gets louder. And your feelings, they're just information. They're telling you that you need to do something. And as you can see there's some tools to help you. Specific tools for specific emotions. And you need to have a toolbox that has a load of specific tools for specific emotions. That's it. No more hatred. You love yourself like never before. Nothing changes unless something changes. And it all starts with you using the stop sign. So I'm so glad that we made it through this particular session. The next session will be about relationships in our recovery and our relationship with our recovery and how relationships play a role in our recovery and how we got here. How our relationships can be affected by our thinking unless we change it. So it'll be about relationships and moving forward in that way. So, appreciate you being here today. The homework for today, let's see what we had for homework. Yeah, I think I'm going to give you this for homework. Let's go to here. Let's go to homework. Yeah, that's good homework right there. What are your danger times? What are your warning signs? What are your dangerous thoughts? I would actually add next to dangerous thoughts is what are some of the dangerous things that you say, because you end up saying what you think, and that gives what you think more power, and then you end up doing it. What are your regulation tools? Who are your support people? Now's a good time to write environmental rules for your room. What does your room look like? Where's the screen? Do you bring phones into the bedroom? Do you take phones into the bathroom? Those kinds of things. And then maybe a page or a 2-page essay on what are same-day repair steps that you can take if you were to have a day where you had a slip. And it's not just pornography acting out. There's days that you need repair, because if you don't do repair from some kind of emotional thing that somebody does, or some kind of stress thing that somebody does, or something that somebody does, or maybe the world has some kind of crisis in it. If you don't take steps to repair yourself, then you get overwhelmed, and then that puts you in a danger zone. And until you get supremacy over how you self-soothe, you'll self-soothe the way that you've been trained to self-soothe, the way that you've trained yourself with years of practice. So again, there's your homework. Make the day and every day, the rest of your life, your living masterpiece, because you deserve it. The world's waiting on you. You got something specific to give this world that only you can give this world. And it's unfortunate that this acting out uncontrollable behavior, unfortunately, is getting the best of you. So yeah, it's time to use the tools that we put in place so that that's not the end of your story.